Welcome to the Business for Aligned Women podcast. I'm Honey. I'm a coach working primarily with women and specializing in aligned business, personal transformation, and embodiment. Each week here I'll be sharing business strategy, business advice, tips and tools for you to think more deeply, for you to get more self-aligned, and for you to start your week in the most conscious and intentional way possible. Welcome to the Business for Aligned Women podcast 2024. Today I'm going to be talking about what to do when plans change. And this is a timely and specific little conversation, and I'll explain why and how that is. Before we get into it, I want to invite you to a free offer that I have. If you haven't already downloaded my end of year review workbook, I absolutely implore you to do it. It will make such a big difference if you download it and you work through it and action the things that come up in it. And if you're someone who has consistently made lofty goals in your personal life or in business and you're not hitting them, but you keep making them, this is a really great workbook for you, because it's going to get you to really get a bit more self-aware and build your understanding of the context that you're operating in, so that you can start to honor yourself more and look at goals and ways of working that are going to give you some results, rather than continuing to do things that aren't supportive of you. I will pop that in the show notes, and let me know if you download it and you love it. I'd love to hear what comes out of it. Today, we're talking about what to do when plans change and what not to do. And the reason that we're talking about this is, as of today, releasing this podcast today in this way was not my intended plan. My intended plan was to rebrand my business in January and to start the new year in the podcast with a whole new rebrand. If all best laid plans happen, you will be seeing a new rebrand next week. But because I had committed to you guys, I'm sure no one really paid attention, but I said, I will be back on this date. I wanted to be back for you. So I thought, why not use this experience as a learning opportunity for both of us and share some of the ways that I've managed this plan changing and what I'm doing about it. In business, things will often not go to plan. I think it's really important to have a plan and a system. There's that Theodore Roosevelt quote, a fail to plan is a plan to fail. And I really, really live by that. But we also have to be quite flexible, because the world is changing, we're changing, what we need is changing. So we need to be really open to things moving in a different direction from what we'd originally set. And some of the ways that this is very likely to happen in your business is that certain products might not sell very well. You might come up with an idea that you think people really want and they just don't buy it. That has happened to me before. I can think of one specific offer that not a single person bought, but instead the marketing, the launch that I did around that offer got people to realize, oh, I don't want to work with her in a group program, but I need to work with her one-to-one. So while people didn't buy for that offer, it actually ended up that I made a lot more money. These things can happen, and it would be really not very beneficial for you to get stuck on them or to worry about them or to get upset about them. But we do want to use them as learning opportunities. Not being the right fit. That could be with clients, with staff, with contractors, with even your niche or what you're offering. And of course, people writing nasty comments, or I've had a lot of experiences with my clients where they come to me and they want to launch like 75 products in 12 months. And I'm like, that will never happen and would never function. So let's break it down to 3 or 4. And they've started off with this plan, and then we've broken it down and they've had to restart again. And I do find that they come to me and plans change, they can get emotionally caught up in it, and it can create a flow-on effect of them not showing up, and that you just cannot operate a business like that, and it will never work. And I believe also, if you're thinking about a goal of like, I don't know, you want to go to the gym 5 times a week and then you get sciatica and you can't go, we need to actually take that in our stride and try again rather than just giving up. And I do see a lot of conscious and unconscious giving up energy when things don't go perfectly according to plan with my clients and the community that I'm in and part of. So let's talk about what to do when plans change. And for instance, this rebranding change of mine, one of the biggest things that has helped me get through it is my personal philosophy of Stoicism. And the main tenet really of Stoicism is just you have to only worry about the things that are in your own locus of control and let go of stressing about things that are other people's locus of control. And when you think about plans changing and how you respond to them, I think that tenet is incredibly helpful. For instance, in this experience, rather than getting really angry or getting really upset or having a fit, I've kind of accepted that in the past I've done things too quickly and I've rushed things. And this whole year for me is about elevating and up leveling. And part of that and that maturing process for me is to do things very, very slowly and give them the time that they require and not rush what I'm doing. And don't take that and run with it, because I do know some people kind of take that and then it ends up being 4 or 5 years and they've done nothing. That's not the point. We have to have self-awareness. But going, okay, this project, it needs more time than I thought it did. And when my clients ask me, how long should I prepare for a launch? That was a question I got last week. And I said, well, I think you should think of how long you think it will take you and then double that. And then do it a few times and collect the data, and then you'll know. Because I really don't think anyone can make assumptions about how quickly other people work. For me, that will be 1 week, but I've been doing it for a long time. So it's going to be different for someone who's doing it the first time. And allowing this to have the time that it needs, using it as an opportunity to get even more organized and prepared for when I am able to hit the button on rebranding. Most important thing that I believe can come from your reaction to when plans change is you actually examining and investigating what exactly went wrong here and what was my part in it, what was my side of the street, and what can I do in the future to ensure that my side of the street is cleaner in this situation. Now, this is something that I am fucking brilliant at. Like, this is one of my biggest strengths. My therapist, my doctor, my acupuncturist, everyone says to me, I'm really proud of how much when something happens, you get the good juice out of it and you make new boundaries and you create new systems and structures and you just keep moving forward. For instance, using this example of rebranding and it taking longer than I was told or expected that it would take, a big thing for me is I really need to be working with people who are highly communicative, and I need to tell them that. So if I work with someone, I need to from now on say, it's really important for me that you just flick me an email on a Monday and say, I'm doing this when. It's really important that you're communicating with me throughout the whole process. Even just a quick message is going to totally change the way I experience this process. The first piece of branding I saw, because I was so deflated by the way the communication had been handled, I really, really disliked the first thing I saw. Okay. 3 weeks later, I've kind of organized things. I've kind of set a few boundaries. We're communicating better. I see the exact same design. I saw it again and I went, you know what? It is actually quite good. I actually do like the first iteration. Let's just go back to the first iteration and leave it at that. But because I was not feeling good about it, I had a negative reaction to the product that I was receiving. So we have to really understand, what do we need as individuals and as teams to make sure that we have the best possible experience, and for your clients as well. And that is always something that I do after every single cohort. There's obviously feedback in process, but personally, I will go, was there anything in this that I felt like wasn't supporting them or that could be better? And if you're someone who's worked with me for years, you've seen it. You've seen the iterations. And I don't mean I change everything, but for instance, how I store your tasks, how we communicate outside of sessions, even like tiny little things. I'm always tinkering with it to try and get the best possible result for both parties. So part of this is really being self-aware. What do I need in order to feel safe in my work? What is going to make me feel good and happy? And how can I ask for that or communicate that or choose to work with people or do projects that are supportive of those kind of frameworks? So those are the things that I think you should do. I think you should really examine your side of the street, get very honest, and write down the things that you did wrong or that you could do better in the future to ensure that the plan doesn't go awry again. Things not to do, and this is probably what your ears will pick up about. Don't let the change in plans force you to stop. Don't let it make you drop the ball. If something's been really upsetting or really dysregulating, of course, take a day, a few days, a weekend, go and treat yourself, do all of your practices, feel the feels, process it. But anything longer than 3 days, I think you're absolutely pulling your own leg and you're being ridiculous and you need to get back on the horse. What I just said might have pushed a few buttons, but I'm saying it because conducting yourself like that and dropping the ball every 2 minutes when things aren't perfect, you will never succeed. Hear me when I say that. Your big, lofty financial goals that you have are fucking pie in the sky if you don't pull your socks up and just keep showing up when things are uncomfortable. Do not overanalyze. Spend some time, I would say, like write a little, like, 2 columns. What was their issue? What was my issue? And then maybe another page. What do I need in the future to make this run better? What can I do to make this a better exchange? What did you do wrong? And find a way to insert those changes into the next time that you do this thing. Don't go into avoidance. That's my last point on what not to do. And it is, I guess, the extension of dropping the ball and spending way too long thinking about it, in your head about it, upset about it. And you can go into just building up a little bit of a mental, I don't like the word block, but a mental block around it. For instance, I'm going to give you a little example here. I had someone bully me really badly at the end of last year, really personally attack me. And it was very, very clearly because of how badly they felt about themselves. But I am a sensitive soul. I've got a Cancer moon and I'm autistic. Even though I process things a bit more slowly and I might not have the reaction you want in the moment, you can sure as hell bet I'm having the reaction on my own later on. And that made me not want to show up online. It's probably the only time in my working memory that I have actually dropped the ball because of how someone spoke to me, because it was just it was so violent and it was so totally out of this world, like just kind of insane, just complete instability, that it rocked me so much. So I stopped showing up online and I said to myself, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to show up online for a while because it is the holidays. I am pretty tired. I'm pretty creatively constipated and I need to friggin' concentrate on writing my book. And then it was like, okay, so it's back. It's February. I've had a few weeks off. Am I going to create TikToks? Nope. Am I going to avoid creating TikToks? Yep. How many weeks? 3 more weeks. And the fact that I was avoiding it built it up in my head So I felt like I couldn't do it, or I was bad at it, or I didn't know what to do. But as soon as I did it for 2 days, I was like, okay, I'm fine. I'm back on the horse and I'm back in my flow with it. And it wasn't a big deal. But because I dropped the ball, overanalyzed, got very upset about it, and then went into avoidance, it it ballooned out into like 5 weeks when I was never even meant to take a break. Like it was meant to be no break, and it was a 5-week break. Luckily, in my business, it's very abundant. I'm very set up financially. I don't need to force myself to put content out there in order to make money every single week. But it didn't make me feel good. And avoiding it, honestly, made me feel worse than if I had just kept showing up. So don't do what I did and continue gently showing up. As I said, if you need to take 1 to 3 days to just process, rest, recuperate, but I honestly believe that 3-day mark is when we all start pushing it and we're all starting to kid ourselves. If any of this has been helpful or kind of giving you a kick up the butt, send me a message, share it with someone else. I would love to hear from you. Always love to hear it. And just so you know, from next week, the pod will be coming out on Tuesday mornings. And I'm doing that strategically because it wasn't very nice for my Northern Hemisphere people to be getting it on a Sunday. So I'm doing it so that everyone can get it at the start of their week and set themselves up for a really strong, self-aware, embodied, empowered, and aligned week ahead. Before I head off for today, I did want to remind you, if any of this has given you that kick up the butt and you're like, I think I want to make bigger strides this year. I actually don't want to continue having those lofty goals and I actually want to start achieving things and ticking things off the list. I am booking up for this year. I have a few spaces in May and a few spaces in September, and I'm booking them now. So if you wanted to work with me one-to-one, I know a lot of you have expressed to me that you're saving up, that you're waiting to finish certain things. Those opportunities for this year, that window is closing. So get in touch as soon as you can. One really nice thing about booking a little bit in advance is that it means you have a much longer payment plan. I'll be talking next week about my rebrand, why I'm doing that, why it's an important thing to me, and also giving you some notes on when you should rebrand and pivot. I know a lot of you rebrand and pivot too often, and I'm trying to explain to you some key points that'll tell you, okay, this is the right moment. Also, I'll be talking next week about how this podcast, my brand, my business, my online presence is going to shift this year. And one of the biggest things is I will be sharing a little bit more about myself. One of the most frustrating things about having an online presence is the level of projections I'm on the receiving end of people making up wild stories about who I am, how I am, and how I operate, and projecting them onto me. And I realize that I probably need to share a little bit more of my personality and what is actually going on in my life to fill the gaps that people are filling themselves. And this year is a lot more about me sharing my viewpoint and not censoring anymore. And I will be calling you out a lot more. I will try and keep it light, but you have to understand the reason I call you out is because you need it. And you're probably not going to progress unless you start looking at these things that are inherently holding you back, that are often unconscious or subconscious. So that is what you have to look forward to.